Okay, when we work through a two-step equation, our first process is we have to work to solve to get y by itself. Now, you guys have done these before, so this is not something new. We did these back in chapter 1. It's just that now I'm combining it where you're going to substitute in and you're going to go ahead and graph those. So if I'm going to solve for y, because I always want it to say y equals, I like to box around just for that visual to tell me, okay, I'm going to leave that one alone and I'm going to get rid of anything else that's on that side of the equal sign, right? So right now I have a minus 3x. I'm going to say plus 3x. And remember, we cannot write the plus 3x right underneath the 6 because the 6 does not have an x. So I have to write it out behind, so plus 3x. Okay, so I now have 3y equals 6 plus 3x. Okay, I want to get y by itself, so my next step would be to go ahead and divide by 3. Okay, it's gone there. Whatever I do to that side, I have to do to each number on this side. Okay, so now I have y equals 6 divided by 3. Whoops, that's a bad equal sign. 6 divided by 3 is 2, plus 3 divided by 3 is 1, and my x. Now, when you guys are working through these, you are used to seeing the x in that front position. Okay, so when you go through and work this out, you can also flip-flop these two. Okay, if you flip-flop them though, you have to make sure that this symbol goes with that number that's behind it. Because if there happens to be a subtraction sign there, you have to remember that that's a minus in front of that number and it has to stay with the number. So you guys are used to seeing it like this, y equals 1x plus 2. Okay, now I can go through and I can pick my x's for this equation. And I would get the same thing if I did this equation. It's just that as we move on, you're going to want to have that x in this first position behind the equal sign. So there's not a fraction involved. I can pick any 3 numbers. I like to pick the smallest one, 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so 1 times 0 is 0, plus 2 gives me 2. 1 times 1 is 1, plus 2 gives me 3. And 1 times 2 is 2, plus 2 gives me 4. So then I'll go ahead and I'll graph out these coordinates, just like we did yesterday and just like we did earlier today. Okay, so let's go ahead and try another one of these two-step equations. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and solve for y. So we want to get y by itself. The nice thing is on this one, the y is by itself. It doesn't have a number, but we still have minus 3x on the same side of the equal sign. So plus 3x to get rid of it. Plus 3x. I now have y left alone equals 1 plus 3x. You guys are used to seeing it with the x in that first position, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. Y equals, my x is a positive 3x, so 3x, and this 1 is a positive 1, so plus 1. Okay, so now if I substitute, I'm going to use 0, 1, and 2 again. Okay, so 3 times 0 is 0, plus 1, so 0 plus 1 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 gives me 4. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 gives me 7. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and I'll graph those on my graph and make sure that they make a line. Okay, so I want you guys to try this next one on your own. And I want you to work through it. And I also want you to go ahead and solve the x's and the y's. Okay, so for your x's, go ahead and use 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so you're going to isolate to get y by itself, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to solve to get what your new y's are. So go ahead and pause your video and work your way through this equation. And then when you're finished, you can start the video back up and check yourself. So work through the equation and then also graph that line. Okay, so in the end, you should have ended up with y equals -2 minus 3x, which if I rewrite that would become y equals -3x minus 2. Okay, then for your y's, when you substitute it in, you should have gotten a -2. And then when I substitute in 1, that would give me -5. And when I substitute in a 2, it would give me -8. So if I graph these, it would look like this. So then you should have had a line that cuts through this way. And looked like that with arrows at both ends. Okay, so this lesson was just combining two previously taught things and then having you graph them out. So the key thing is that you're working to get that y by itself. So we're going to try one more where we're going to go ahead and isolate, and then we'll discuss out how we could pick out for our x's. So here I've got where I want to isolate and get y by itself. So minus an x, minus 1x. And the reason I'm putting the 1 in there is I see that I'm going to be doing some division. So divide by 3 to get the y by itself. Divide by 3, divide by 3. So I end up with y equals, I'm going to go ahead and put my x first, and I have to remember that that negative sticks with that 1/3. So -1/3 x. And then this would give me 12 divided by 3 is 4, and that's a positive 4, so I'm going to say plus 4. Okay, so for my x's, I'm going to want to pick, so you can see that negative better. I'm going to want to pick multiples of 3. So I always like to use 0, 3, 6. Okay, so that's just another one that you can go through and practice. So if you want to go ahead and pause your video and work your way through that equation so you can see what the line looks like, go ahead and do that. Pause the video now and work your way through it. Okay, so that's what you should have ended up with when you graphed through that equation. Okay, that's all I have for this lesson. Just keep plugging away at those two-step ones. I know those are the ones that are probably going to be the most frustrating for you. But just remember, it's not learning from scratch. You guys have worked with isolating y before. Good luck with these, you guys.